There is a version of you that is quietly finishing. Not dying, not failing, just closing the way an unread book closes itself when no one opens it for years. The pages are still good. The story was still yours, but the hand that was supposed to turn them stopped moving. Here is the thought I want you to sit with for the next minute, and I ask you not to shrug it away. You wake up tomorrow with the same body, the same job, the same responsibilities, and the same bank account you have today. Nothing in your circumstances changes overnight. The bills are where they are. The people are where they are. Your habits are exactly where they have been. But something else is different. You know with absolute certainty that your first life is over. Not in a dramatic sense, in a quiet one. The part of your life that was going to happen eventually has now officially happened, or rather, it has now officially not happened, and you have made peace with that. The promises you kept making to a future version of yourself have expired. There is no debt to pay to that old story. It is closed. And here is the strange gift inside that sentence. If your first life is over, then tomorrow is not a continuation of yesterday. It is day one. Not day 2000 and something, day one. Most people never get to feel that because they never close the old story. They keep it open like a tab in a browser, always there, always weighing on the memory, always whispering that the real life starts after the next paycheck, the next breakup, the next move, the next Monday. But a story you refuse to close keeps editing your present from the background. It tells you who you are. It tells you what you are allowed to want. It tells you that change is something other people get to attempt. I am not going to give you a speech. I am going to walk you through a method, a set of small, stubborn, repeatable moves that lets a person who feels stuck actually become someone who is not. The method has a name, the Second Life Method, and the entire method rests on one decision you can make today without anyone's permission. You do not need a new body. You do not need a new bank account. You do not need the old version of your life to have been impressive. You only need to stop assuming that tomorrow has to resemble yesterday. Everything after this point is how. Autopilot is not laziness. It is not weakness. It is not a character flaw. Autopilot is what the human brain does extremely well, and it is the reason our species survived long enough to invent problems like procrastination in the first place. Your brain loves a loop. When you do something once and it does not kill you, the brain files it under known, and the next time a similar moment arrives, it runs the file instead of thinking. This is wonderful for tying your shoes and terrible for running your life. Consider an ordinary day. You open your eyes. Before your feet touch the floor, your hand is already reaching for the phone. Not because anything urgent exists, because the hand has learned the route. You scroll while the kettle boils. You scroll while the coffee cools. You scroll while you tell yourself you will start the real day in a minute. Then the real day arrives in the form of a notification that someone else built for you, and you answer it. None of those moves was a decision. They were a script, and the script was written years ago by repetition, not by choice. The dangerous part is not the phone. The dangerous part is that the script keeps expanding to cover the things that actually matter. You stop applying for the job you want because the timing isn't right. A sentence you have said so many times it no longer feels like an excuse. It feels like a fact. You stop having the conversation you keep avoiding because the pattern of avoiding it is now stronger than the reason for having it. You tell yourself you will begin after the holidays, after the project ends, after things calm down, and after becomes a place you live, not a time you visit. This is how an unconscious life gets built, not in one dramatic surrender, in 10,000 small, unpaid-for defaults. Here is the part most self-help gets wrong. They tell you to be disciplined as if discipline is a muscle you can just flex, but you cannot out-discipline a life that has been architected against you. The autopilot is running on friction you installed yourself and then forgot about. The phone on the pillow. The browser open to the feed. The chair that faces the fridge. The friend you text when you are bored instead of when you are glad. So the first move of the second life method is not to fight the autopilot with willpower. It is to notice it. Naming the loop is the only thing that interrupts it, because a loop you can see is a loop you can choose not to run. Try this once today with no audience. Pick one routine you do every single day without thinking. The first scroll, the second coffee, the way you open your laptop and immediately open the tab that wastes you. Watch yourself do it as if you were a stranger watching a stranger. Do not judge it, just observe. Ah, there it is. The script is running. That small act of noticing is the first crack in the wall. You will not change the loop today by noticing it, but you will never change it without noticing it. The autopilot cannot steer a person who is awake at the wheel. Let me make this concrete, because an idea you cannot picture does not change behavior. A man, call him Marcus, told me he had always wanted to learn the guitar. He owned a guitar. It leaned against the wall in his living room for 6 years. 6 years. Not once did he decide not to learn. He simply never decided, and the leaning guitar became furniture. The autopilot filled the space where a decision should have been. Every time he walked past it, a small invisible vote was cast. Not today, which repeated 2,000 times became not ever, which repeated long enough became I'm not a music person. The guitar did not take anything from Marcus. The unexamined loop did. The day Marcus finally noticed the loop, actually stopped and said, I have been avoiding this for 6 years and calling it a phase, was the first day the loop lost its silent vote. He did not become a guitarist that day. He tuned one string, but the furniture became a choice again, and a choice is something a person can make. The loop you are noticing in your own life may be smaller or larger than a guitar. It does not matter. The size of the loop is not the point. The point is that right now, without your permission, some part of your day is being written by a file you forgot you created. Naming it is the only thing that returns the pen to your hand. A simple way to find your loops. For one day, carry a note and mark every moment you reach for something before you decided to. The phone, the snack, the tab, the just 5 more minutes that becomes an hour. Do not change anything that day. Only mark it. By evening you will have a map of everywhere the autopilot drives. That map is worth more than any plan because you cannot reroute a road you have not seen. There is a quiet arithmetic most people never do, and it is the most expensive calculation they skip. Later feels free. It feels harmless. It feels like a small kindness to yourself, not now but soon. But later is never a single moment. It is a compound. Every time you say it, you make the next later easier and you make the present choice smaller. The cost is not paid once. It is paid as interest forever. Think of a person who says at 26, I'll get serious about my health later. Not never, later. At 26, the cost is a walk they didn't take. At 32, it is a body that doesn't recover the way it used to. At 40, it is a list of small problems that are now large ones. The person did not decide to be unhealthy. They decided 200 times to delay a walk. This is the trap of the open-ended future. Because the future has no edge, you can keep pushing the same decision into it, and it never pushes back. The future is endlessly forgiving right up until the moment it becomes your past. We tell ourselves there will always be more time, but time is not a tank you refill. It is a stream you stand in. The water that passes your ankles does not come back. You only ever have the part of the stream you are standing in now, and later is a story you tell yourself about water that already moved downstream. The second life method reframes this without shame. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are simply a person who has been paying for later in the only currency that matters, and you have just noticed the receipt. That is not a reason to punish yourself. It is a reason to change the habit that writes the checks. A useful exercise: take one thing you keep postponing and write the actual sentence you have been telling yourself. After the busy season, once I have more energy, when things settle, now cross out the conditional and replace it with a date, not someday, a Tuesday, a specific Tuesday. If you cannot name the Tuesday, the truth is you are not postponing the task, You are postponing the identity of the person who would do it. That is the real cost of later, not the missed task. The postponed self. Every delay trains you to be someone who waits, and the longer you wait, the more that someone feels like the only version of you that is real. You do not fix this by becoming a different person overnight. You fix it by refusing, one Tuesday at a time, to let later be the author of your life. Most people approach change backwards. They wait to feel motivated, and they believe that feeling will somehow rearrange their life. But motivation is the last thing to arrive, not the first. The first thing is a small action. The identity follows the action, not the other way around. Watch how this actually works. A person who has never exercised thinks, "I'm not the kind of person who exercises." So they wait to feel like an exerciser. But you do not feel like an exerciser until you have exercised. And you do not exercise until you feel like one. That loop only breaks in one direction. You act first small, and the identity quietly updates to match the evidence. This is why "I need motivation" is a trap sentence. It places the cause outside you, in a feeling you are waiting for someone or something to deliver. The second life method flips it. This is who I am becoming is not a feeling. It is a claim you back with a single, boring, repeatable action. Behavior reinforces identity the way water reinforces a path. Every time you do the small thing, you walk the path a little deeper. Every time you skip it, the grass grows back over the new trail and the old road gets wider. You are not fighting yourself. You are choosing which path gets worn. A man I know wanted to become someone who writes. For years he waited to feel like a writer. Then on a random Wednesday he wrote one sentence in a notes app and closed it. The next day one more. He did not tell anyone, he just collected sentences. After a month he had 40. The identity did not arrive as a feeling. It arrived as a file he could point to. I am someone who writes, he realized, because I have writing. Not because he felt like it, because he had proof. That is the whole chapter in one image. You become the person you have evidence of being, not the person you hope to be, not the person you used to be, the person your recent actions prove. So when the old autopilot offers you the script, "I'm just not disciplined. I always quit." That's not me. You now have a tool. You do not argue with the script. You take one small action that contradicts it, and you let the contradiction accumulate. The script loses power not because you fought it, but because the new evidence outnumbers it. In your second life, identity is not a verdict you received. It is a draft you revise daily with what you actually do. A short story to make this stick. A woman in her 40s told me she had spent 20 years describing herself as not a morning person. It was a sentence she said the way people say the sky is blue, as if it were weather, not a choice. One January she decided, for no dramatic reason, to make tea and stand at the window for 2 minutes before checking her phone. That was the whole practice. Within weeks she noticed she was, in fact, a person who saw the morning. The old label had been a prophecy she kept confirming by reaching for the phone first. The 2-minute tea did not change her biology. It changed the evidence. And the evidence, accumulated, rewrote the label. She still says, sometimes, "I'm not a morning person," but now she laughs when she says it because the file no longer matches the life. This is the quiet mechanics of becoming. You do not argue with the old label. Arguing feeds it. You produce one small piece of contrary evidence, then another, until the label is outnumbered and quietly retires. The ritual is not a victory speech. It is a Tuesday where you do the small thing and forget there was ever a question about whether you were the kind of person who does it. There is a tax you pay every day that does not show up on any statement. It is collected in coins of attention, and almost none of it is marked as payment. It is called the attention tax, and over a year it adds up to more than most people spend on anything else they own. The mechanism is simple. Your phone is built by thousands of engineers whose only job is to keep your eyes on it for one more minute. Not because they hate you, because their bonus depends on it. Every notification is a small tug. Every red dot is a small open loop your brain cannot fully close. Every infinite feed is a slot machine that pays you just often enough to keep pulling. None of this is a moral failing in you. It is a designed environment, but designed by someone else for their goal, not yours. The cost shows up in fragments. You sit to work and within 90 seconds you check one thing and lose 11 minutes. You read a paragraph and your hand reaches for the device before your eyes reach the bottom of the page. You have a thought and before you finish it, you've translated it into a post. The thought never lands. The day becomes a series of interruptions you chose, believing you were choosing rest. Here is what the fragments cost you. Not the minutes are real but survivable. The cost is the person you would have been in those minutes, the idea you didn't finish, the book you didn't read, the conversation you half heard, the quiet you didn't sit in long enough to hear yourself think. Attention is the raw material of a life. When it is spent in someone else's factory, you do not get the product. Comparison is the hidden line item. Scrolling shows you curated highlights of strangers and asks your brain to compare them to your unedited foreground. Your worst moment against their best frame. Your behind the scenes against their trailer. No one wins that comparison, and everyone runs it daily for free. The Second Life method does not ask you to delete your phone or move to a cabin. It asks you to notice the tax and lower the rate. The smallest version of this: put the phone in another room for the first hour you are awake and the last hour before sleep. That single move returns more attention than any productivity system. The device stops being the first thing you touch and the last thing you see. You become the first and last thing in your own day. Attention, once recovered, compounds the way debt works in reverse. A quiet morning makes a clearer afternoon. A clear afternoon makes a decision you used to avoid feel small. Small recovered attention, repeated, is a recovered life. Let me trace one ordinary evening so you can see the tax being collected in real time. A person finishes dinner at 7. They mean to read the book on the chair, the one they keep meaning to read. At 7:05 the phone buzzes with a message, and they answer it. At 7:12 they open the feed for a second and lose 20 minutes. At 7:40 they remember the book, but now the brain is warmed up for scrolling, not reading, so reading feels hard, and they scroll a little more to relax from the effort of deciding. At 8:30 they feel the specific tiredness that comes from many small interruptions, not from one real task, and they tell themselves they are too tired to read. The book is not read. The tax was collected in 9 separate coins, none large enough to notice, and the total was the evening. Now watch the same evening with the device in another room after dinner. 7 to 7:30, a real meal, then the chair, then the book, because the book is the only interesting object within reach. The reading is not heroic, it is just what is there. 40 minutes past that feel like 20. The person goes to bed having done the thing they keep promising, and the promise-keeping is itself a small deposit. Same person, same evening, different room. The environment did the disciplining. This is why the attention tax is the most important tax you will ever lower. It is collected every day in coins too small to refuse, and it buys nothing for you. Lower the rate by changing the room, and you get the evenings of your life back, not all at once, but one reclaimed hour at a time, until the years start to look different simply because you were present for more of them. This is the hinge of the whole method, so I will say it slowly. The Second Life decision is a single sentence you say to yourself once on purpose, and then keep meaning. My previous patterns do not get to automatically decide what happens next. Read it again. Notice it does not say your past didn't happen. It does not say you have no history. It says the history is not the pilot. The autopilot can suggest a route. It cannot press the pedal. You do. Most people give the past a veto they never agreed to give it. I've always been disorganized, so. I've never been good with money, so. I quit things, that's just me, so. Every so hands the wheel to a pattern that was only ever a habit. The Second Life decision takes the wheel back without denying the pattern exists. You make this decision best at a specific moment, not vaguely. Not someday I'll take control. A moment, tonight before sleep, or tomorrow at the first quiet minute. You say the sentence. You might write it on a card and put it where you will see it. The words are less important than the act of deciding. The way closing a tab is less about the click and more about the intent to stop looking. What changes after the decision is not your circumstances. It is the default. Before, when the old script offered a delay, you ran it, because running it was the path of least resistance. After the decision, the same script offers the delay, and there is now a second voice in the room, the one that decided, and it gets a vote. The autopilot no longer runs unopposed. People worry this decision requires a dramatic break, quitting the job, leaving the city, cutting everyone off. It does not. The second life is not a rebellion. It is a revision. You keep your life. You change who is driving it. The same body, same responsibilities, same bank account, and a different person holding the wheel. A man I know made this decision sitting in a car after a phone call he had avoided for 3 weeks. He didn't quit his job. He didn't move. He simply said the sentence out loud in the parked car and then sent the email he had been avoiding. The email was small. The decision behind it was not. That was day one. You will forget you made the decision. The autopilot is patient and the new voice is quiet, so you refresh it. Weekly, monthly, whenever you notice the old script running unopposed, you say it again. My previous patterns do not get to automatically decide what happens next. It is not a spell. It is a vote you keep casting. A concrete way to keep the vote alive. Write the sentence on one card and put it where two things happen, where you start the day and where you end it. Not as decoration, as a checkpoint. In the morning it asks, will today be a continuation or a day one? At night it asks, did the patterns decide or did you? You do not need to answer out loud. The question itself is the refresh. Most people never ask it, which is exactly why the patterns keep deciding by default. The card costs nothing and does the one job the autopilot is counting on you skipping. It makes the decision visible. And if the day went sideways, and some will, the card is not a whip. It is a reset. Today the patterns won. Fine. Tomorrow is a new day one. A second life is not built from perfect days. It is built from the fact that you keep calling the day one, even after the ones that weren't. The person who resets after a bad day is closer to a second life than the person who had one perfect week and then quit because they broke the streak. Perfection is a story the autopilot tells you so you'll quit when you're not perfect. Don't buy it. Day one is always available because yesterday is always over. If I could leave you with one sentence from this whole audiobook, it might be this. Environment beats willpower 9 times out of 10, and the people who look disciplined have usually just designed a life where discipline is the easy option. Willpower is a battery. It drains. Everyone's does. If your plan requires a full battery every morning, your plan fails by noon. So the move is not to build a bigger battery. It is to build a life that runs on less of it. Start with the phone because it is the most expensive object in your day. Charge it outside the bedroom. Buy a $7 alarm clock. The phone on the nightstand is a tax collector that works the night shift. Removing it from arm's reach is not discipline. It is design. Look at your workspace. If the first thing your eye lands on is the feed wins. If the first thing is the page has a chance. Move the device behind you. Face the wall. Put the one thing you want to do where your hand naturally falls. Friction is your friend. Make the good behavior stupidly easy and the bad behavior annoyingly hard. Want to read more? Put the book on the pillow. Want to stop snacking at night? Do not keep the snack in the house. You are not trusting yourself. You are designing for the tired, bored, end-of-day version of you, who is the one who actually makes most of the choices. Cues matter more than goals. A goal is a thing you intend. A cue is a thing you see. The brain responds to cues, not intentions. So attach the new behavior to an old one. After I make coffee, I write one sentence. After I close my laptop, I go for a walk. After I eat lunch, I step outside for 5 minutes. The old habit becomes the trigger for the new one, and you stop relying on remembering. The people around you are part of the environment. You do not need to cut anyone off to change your life, but you do need to notice who makes the old script feel normal. The friend you text when you are bored is part of the design. The group chat that fills the silence is part of the design. You can love them and still protect the quiet where the new you gets built. Design before discipline is not cheating. It is honesty about how humans actually work. You would not expect a plant to grow in a closet and blame the plant. Your behavior is the plant. Your environment is the room. Change the room. A few inexpensive redesigns, drawn from ordinary lives, in case the idea still feels abstract. The person who overeats at night moves the snacks to a high shelf in the back of a cabinet they rarely open, and puts a bowl of fruit on the counter instead. Same kitchen, different default. The person who never exercises lays their clothes by the bed the night before, so the morning step is putting them on, not deciding to. The person who wants to read puts the phone in a drawer and the book on the pillow. None of these required willpower in the moment. They required a 5-minute redesign of the room the night before. The discipline showed up because the room made it the easy path. Notice that every redesign shares a shape. You move the thing you want slightly closer and the thing you avoid slightly farther, not out of the house, just out of the easy reach. Friction is a dial, not a switch. You do not need maximum friction on the bad behavior, only enough that the pause gives the new voice a chance to speak. And you do not need the good behavior to be effortless, only closer than the alternative. Most people try to win by wanting harder. The second life approach wins by arranging the room so wanting is barely needed. Here is a practical framework you can use starting today. I call it the 24-hour rule, and it is the antidote to a specific disease: indefinite postponement. The rule is simple. When an important action can reasonably begin today, take the smallest meaningful first step within 24 hours. That is the whole rule. Let me unpack what it does and does not mean. Can reasonably begin today rules out the impossible. You cannot apply for the job if applications open next month. You cannot have the conversation if the other person is unreachable. The rule is about the actions that are actually available now, and that you keep pushing not because they are blocked, but because they are uncomfortable. Smallest meaningful first step is the key phrase, not the whole task. The first inch, want to get fit. The step is not a full routine. It is one walk around the block or one set of push-ups or one booking of a class. Want to study? The step is not the degree. It is opening the first chapter. Want to fix a relationship? The step is not the apology speech. It is one honest message. Within 24 hours is what kills the postponement. Not soon. Not this week. 24 hours. Because soon is where important things go to die. The deadline is short enough that you cannot build a whole story about why not, and long enough that you can actually do it tonight. This is not reckless impulsivity. The 24-hour rule is not quit your job in a day or propose to a stranger. It is the opposite of impulsivity. It is a structure that forces the small, real, available action to happen before the fear talks you out of it. Big, irreversible decisions still get their thinking time. Small, available beginnings do not get to hide behind later. Examples of how it lands. A difficult conversation you keep avoiding, send one line tonight. Can we talk soon? Nothing urgent, just something on my mind. A project you never start. Open the document and write the title in one sentence. A job you want. Set a timer for 10 minutes and fill the first part of the application. Your money. Open the account and move one small amount, or write the single number you have been avoiding looking at. Learning something. Watch the first 5 minutes of the first lesson. No more, no less. The magic is in the word first. A first step is allowed to be tiny because its only job is to exist. Once it exists, the autopilot has new evidence. I am the kind of person who begins. And beginning, it turns out, is most of finishing. The people who finish are rarely the people who felt ready. They are the people who took the first step before the feeling arrived. Try it once with one thing in the next 24 hours, not 5 things. 1. The rule works because it is small enough to keep. A reflection you can do right now before you close this. Think of the one action you have been postponing that is actually available today. Name it specifically. Not get healthy, walk to the end of the street. Not fix my career, open the application and fill the name field. Not repair the relationship, send the one honest line. Write the specific step on your hand or in your phone notes with a time. Tonight, after dinner, I will take this one step. The deadline is what makes it real. A step without a deadline is a wish with extra syllables. The 24-hour rule also protects you from the opposite error, starting too big and quitting by Thursday. People often hear take action and immediately try to rebuild their entire life on Monday, then collapse by Wednesday and conclude they have no discipline. They had discipline. They had a bad plan. The rule's smallness is not a weakness. It is the feature that lets the action survive contact with a normal, tired, distracted life. The person who takes one small step every day for a month builds more than the person who takes one giant step and quits. One more thing the rule does quietly. It trains your brain to expect beginnings. Most people live in a state of permanent not yet. The 24-hour rule converts not yet into began, and began is a feeling the brain likes. It releases a small bit of relief, the kind you get when you finally make the call you dreaded. That relief is not the goal, but it is a useful signal. The thing you were avoiding was heavier in your head than in your hands. The rule proves that 24 hours at a time, until avoiding stops feeling safer than acting. Promises are cheap and the autopilot knows it. You have made promises to yourself before New Year's, Monday, the first of the month, and most of them are still unopened. The second life method does not run on promises. It runs on proof. Proof is a small completed action you can point to. I said I would, and here it is. The brain believes proof. It files promises under intentions and proof under facts. Facts change identity. Intentions don't. Here is the system. 5 moves in order repeated forever. Decide, choose one small action, not a goal, an action. I will walk for 10 minutes after dinner. Decided. Shrink, make it small enough that refusal feels sillier than doing it. If 10 minutes feels like a lot on a hard day, shrink to 5. If 5 feels like a lot, shrink to putting on the shoes. The step must be too small to negotiate with. Execute, do the shrunk step. Today, no audience, no post, no reward system. Just do it and let it be ordinary. Record, mark it, a check on a wall calendar, a line in a notes app, one word in a journal. The record is not for show, it is the evidence. You are building a pile of I did the thing that the old script cannot argue with. Repeat, tomorrow, the same small loop, not a bigger one. The same one until it is boring. Boring is the signal it is becoming identity. A woman I know used this to rebuild after a hard year. She did not promise to transform. She decided on one action, write one sentence before bed. She shrank it to one true sentence. She executed it. She recorded it with a single check. She repeated it. In 4 months she had 120 checks, and without planning to, the start of a book. The proof did what the promise never could. Notice the order. Most people invert it. They decide a huge goal, promise loudly, execute once, forget to record, and quit by week 2. The second life method is boring on purpose, because boring is what survives contact with a tired Tuesday. The record matters more than it looks. On the days you don't feel like it, and there will be many, the record is the only thing that speaks. You look at the chain of checks and the old script says, you always quit, and the chain says, here are 90 times you didn't. The chain wins because it is made of facts. Build proof, not promises. Let the pile of small completions become the person you are becoming. There is a lie going around that discipline means never wanting to stop, that the disciplined person is a machine who feels nothing and grinds forever. That lie burns people out and then blames them for burning. The truth, discipline is what you do on the day you don't feel like it, and the feeling of not feeling like it is completely normal. Everyone who sticks with anything has a large collection of days they did not want to. The difference is not the absence of the feeling. It is that the action happened anyway small, and the identity stayed intact. Motivation is a weather system. It comes and goes. If your whole practice depends on motivation, you only act when the weather is good, which means you only act sometimes, which means you don't actually build anything durable. Discipline is the umbrella. It lets you keep walking when the weather turns. Here is the part that protects you from burnout. Rest and recovery are not the enemy of discipline. They are part of it. The person who trains every day without sleep, who never takes a breath, who mistakes exhaustion for virtue, that person is not disciplined. They are flirting with collapse, and collapse is the most expensive thing that can happen to a second life. So the system includes rest on purpose, a walk every day, a full stop one day a week. Sleep is not a reward you earn after grinding. Sleep is the ground the practice stands on. The second life method does not ask you to suffer. It asks you to keep the small loop alive through the boring and the tired, and to rest like it matters because it does. Realistic examples help here. The writer who doesn't feel like writing still opens the document and writes one sentence, sometimes only that, and that counts. The runner who doesn't feel like running still puts on the shoes and steps outside, sometimes only to the corner, and that counts. The person rebuilding their money still checks the number on the tired night because the check is the proof, not the amount. What you are protecting on those days is not the task. It is the loop. Miss the task and you lose an action. Miss the loop and you lose the identity, and the identity is the whole game. So on the hard days, shrink harder. Make the step so small it would be absurd to skip. Then do it, rest, and let the chain hold. Discipline, properly understood, is a kind thing you do for your future self. It is not punishment. It is a quiet promise kept. The person I am becoming can rely on the person I am now. That promise, kept on the days no one sees, is what a second life is made of. Let me show you the two versions side by side because the difference is smaller than people think, and that is good news. Version 1. A person decides to get serious about fitness. They train hard 6 days a week, sleep 5 hours, skip meals, post about it, and feel virtuous. By week 3, their body breaks down, they stop entirely, and they conclude they have no willpower. Version 2. A person decides to walk 10 minutes after dinner. Some nights it is 10 minutes, some nights 5, some nights just the shoes on. They sleep, they eat, they keep the loop for a year. At the end of the year, the second person has walked more than the first person ran, and this is the part that matters: they are still walking. The first person built a spike. The second built a path. A second life is built from paths, not spikes. The burnout version is not lazy. It is often the more ambitious one. Ambition without rest is a debt the body eventually calls in, and the interest is steep. So when you feel the pull to go all in, pause and ask, is this a step I can keep or a spike I will crash from? If it is a spike, shrink it until it is a step. The shame of slowing down is nothing next to the cost of stopping. And on the days you genuinely cannot, the sick day, the crisis, the grief, the rule is, hold the loop in the smallest form or rest cleanly and return without guilt. A chain with one intentional gap, held with self-respect, is stronger than a chain snapped by pretending you are fine. Rest is not the enemy of the second life. Pretending you don't need it is. You do not change your life in a vacuum, and pretending otherwise is a setup for failure. The people around you are part of your environment, and environment, as we covered, beats willpower. So this chapter is about handling the human part with honesty and without cruelty. Some people will like your second life. They will notice the small changes and quietly cheer. They will text at the right time. They will ask how the walk went. These people are not accidents. They are part of the design, and you should protect the relationship the way you protect the quiet hour. Some people will not like it, and often they won't mean to hurt you. Your change threatens their comfort. If you were the friend who scrolled with them and now you put the phone down, the scrolling got quieter for both of you. If you were the one who always said yes, and now you protect your time, the yes became earned. People get uneasy when someone near them changes, because it asks a question they may not want to answer about their own life. That unease is not your fault and not your project to fix. Boundaries are not walls. A boundary is a clear, calm line about what you will and won't do, stated once, held without anger. I don't check messages after 9 is a boundary. I'm not available to argue about this is a boundary. You do not need to announce a transformation. You need to hold a few small lines kindly and let the relationship find its new shape. You do not need to abandon anyone. The second life method is not a purge. It is a revision. Some relationships will grow with you. Some will stay as they are and you'll see them less often, and that's allowed. A few may pull hard against the new you, and with those, you hold the boundary and lower the access without hatred and without apology. A useful test. After time with someone, do you feel more like the person you are becoming or more like the person you are trying to leave? Not every interaction will lift you, but if most of them drag you backward, that is data, not a verdict on the friendship. Use the data. Adjust the distance. You can care about someone and still keep them at a length that lets you build. The people around your second life are not obstacles to manage. They are part of the room. Design the room, including who gets close, and the life you want becomes the easy option again. One practical move, because this chapter is where people either get free or get stuck. Have the conversation once calmly with the 1 or 2 people who most affect your daily default. Not a confrontation, a statement. I'm rebuilding a few things about how I live, and I might be quieter some evenings or slower to reply. It's not about you. I'm just protecting a little time. Said once kindly, it removes the need to explain yourself 50 times. Most friction with the people around us comes from unexplained change, not from the change itself. A 5-minute honest sentence prevents a year of low-grade resentment on both sides. You are not asking permission to live your second life. You are extending the basic respect of telling the truth about it. And hold the line on the small stuff without making it a personality. You do not need to become the disciplined one who lectures. You need to be the person who, when invited to the thing that derails them, can say, "Not tonight," and mean it without apology. "Not tonight" is a complete sentence. It protects the loop and preserves the relationship. The people who belong in your second life will still be there on the night you show up. The ones who only like the old default were never going to help you build anyway. At some point you need an honest map, not a motivational poster. This chapter is that map. It is a personal audit you can do in one sitting with a pen and no one watching. Take 8 areas. For each, write what is true right now, not what you wish were true. Health habits, sleep, food, movement, substances. Where are you actually living? Time, for 1 week, where does it go? Not the story, the log. The phone eats more than you think. Money, what comes in, what goes out, and what you have been avoiding looking at. The avoided number is the real one. Work, are you building something or only maintaining? Is the job a step or a holding pattern? Learning, what have you read or practiced in the last month that made you more capable? Relationships, who lifts you, who drains you, who do you owe a conversation to? Digital consumption, how many hours of feed and what did it return? Unfinished commitments, the promises to yourself and others still open. Count them, they weigh more than they look. For each area, sort what you find into 3 columns. Stop the thing that costs more than it returns, the scroll that eats the morning, the yes you resent, the number you avoid, name it plainly. Continue, the thing that is actually working, the walk, the friend, the early night, protect it. Most audits only list problems. This column is the fuel. Start one small thing in the next 24 hours that moves the area 1 inch. Not 5 things, 1. The audit is not a verdict. It is a snapshot. A second life is not built by hating the snapshot. It is built by changing one cell at a time, then taking the audit again in 30 days and watching the picture move. A man I know did this and found his unfinished commitments column had 11 items most years old. He didn't shame himself. He picked one, finished it that week, and felt lighter than he had in months. The relief was not the task. It was the proof that the pile could shrink. So he finished a second. The audit had done its job. It turned a vague weight into a short, doable list. Do the audit once. Do not over-engineer it. The point is not the document. The point is the first stop you actually stop and the first start you actually start. Here is a format that makes the audit land if the 8 columns feel too abstract. Take a single sheet. Down the left side, write the 8 areas. Across the top, write stop, continue, start. Set a timer for 45 minutes and fill only what is true in bullet points, no sentences longer than a line. When the timer ends, close the sheet. Do not act yet. Sleep on it. The next morning, circle exactly 3 items, 1 stop, 1 continue to protect, 1 start, and let everything else wait. 3 is a number the tired brain can honor. 11 is a number it quietly abandons. The audit's value is not in completeness. It is in the 3 circles you actually keep. A note on honesty, because audits fail when they are performed for an audience. No one sees this sheet. The continue column is not vanity. It is the proof you are not starting from zero, and starting from zero thinking is what makes people quit. You already have things working. Name them. The start column is not a wish list. It is the 1-inch move you will make inside 24 hours, because the 24-hour rule does not suspend itself for audits. The audit and the rule are the same method wearing 2 clothes. Look honestly, then move small, then keep the loop. A second life is not launched. It is lived, 1 day at a time, and the first 30 days are where it becomes real or becomes another intention. So here is a simple 30-day system, deliberately small, deliberately survivable. Pick 3 high-leverage behaviors. Not 10, 3. From your audit, choose the 3 that, if done daily, would move the most areas at once. Usually they look like: protect the first hour of the day, take 1 24-hour step on the thing you avoid, and keep 1 proof record. Week 1 is for wiring, not winning. You are not trying to be perfect. You are trying to make the 3 behaviors exist. Miss a day. The rule is never miss twice. 1 skip is life. 2 skips is a new pattern. So if you miss, the very next day is non-negotiable, even if the step is tiny. Week 2, the autopilot pushes back. The old script gets louder because it is losing. Expect a day you want to quit. That day is not a sign it's failing. It is a sign it's working. Shrink the step. Keep the loop. The chain matters more than the size. Week 3, identity arrives. You start to think of yourself as the person who does these things because the proof pile says so. This is the week it gets easier, not because the work is less, but because you are now someone who does it. Week 4, expand by 1. Add a single new small behavior from your start column, not 5. 1. The system is a slow snowball, and a snowball that rolls too fast falls apart. Let it gather. Design the month so it fits a tired Tuesday. If your plan only works on a motivated Monday, it is not a plan, it is a mood. The 30-day system must survive boredom, a bad night, and a hard week. That is why it is 3 behaviors, not 30. Do not celebrate with a binge that erases the gain. Rest, yes. Collapse, no. The point of the month is not a result you show anyone. It is a new default you can keep. At the end of 30 days, take the audit again. The picture will have moved. Maybe an inch. An inch, repeated for a year, is a different life. You do not need a perfect month. You need a real one. Real means small, kept, and boring enough to last. To make the month concrete, here is what the 3 behaviors might look like for an ordinary person with an ordinary job. Behavior 1. Protect the first hour phone stays in the kitchen, and the first action of the day is the one avoided task, shrunk to 5 minutes. Behavior 2. 1 24-hour step, Every day, the thing they have been postponing gets its smallest beginning, even if the beginning is only opening the file. Behavior 3. One proof record, a single mark on a wall calendar made before sleep, no exception. That is the whole month. On a good Tuesday it takes 20 minutes. On a bad Tuesday it takes 2. The calendar does not care which. By day 30 the sheet has 26 or 28 marks, and the person has become someone who marks the sheet, which is to say, someone who keeps a loop. The result they wanted was never the point. The kept loop was the point, and the result follows the loop the way a shadow follows a body. We are at the end, and I want to tell you the truth, the method has been circling the whole time. The second life was never going to be another life. There is no reset button, no new body arriving, no different past. The second life was always a name for a single moment, the moment you stopped assuming tomorrow had to resemble yesterday. That is the whole secret, and it is not a secret. You have always had the wheel. The autopilot was just a story you let drive because it was the path of least resistance, and paths of least resistance are easy to mistake for destiny. But a story is not a destiny. A habit is not a sentence. A past is not a prison. It is only a place you used to stand. Look at what you actually have now. The same body, the same responsibilities, the same bank account, and something the old story didn't have, a decision. My previous patterns do not get to automatically decide what happens next. You said it. You meant it. And meaning it even once changed the room. You will forget. The old script is patient. The new voice is quiet. That is fine. Forgetting is not failure. Forgetting is just the next chance to decide again, and the deciding gets cheaper every time you do it. So don't wait for a new life. Don't wait for the perfect Monday or the cleaner slate. You are already standing in the stream. The water that passed is gone. The water arriving is yours. Step into it small today, with one action you can point to. Then do it again tomorrow and the day after until the person you are becoming is the only version of you that feels real. Your first life taught you what autopilot costs. Your second life is what you do with that lesson. It starts, not with a miracle, but with a single small step taken inside the next 24 hours, and the quiet, stubborn refusal to let yesterday write tomorrow. That is the method. That is the life, not another one, this one finally on purpose. Thank you for listening. Now close this and go take the first step.